in Hong Kong, they've said that they want to test everyone, right? That they're giving everyone a free test.
Interesting question. I think it's available if you go. I'm not too sure, just because the nature of my job, I get tested quite frequently. So for me, it's never been an issue. Yeah, I basically get tested once a month at least. So
what testing do you do? Is it like the swab test? Is it up the nose and down the throat?
No, we call it like the deep throat something. So basically you spit into a bottle, but ideally it's from your throat. So
your pocket.
Oh, okay. You do it that way.
We do it that way. So I think it might be less effective than obviously the swab, because the swab definitely gets the back of your throat. Whereas the one that we're doing, it really depends on you whether you're sensible enough to actually get the full sample. So
when you do the test, do you have to stay where you are and wait for the test results before you do anything else? Or
I don't. The company arranges specific taxis that only transports our colleagues to and from the airport. So we would get tested and then just get on the taxi straight back home, and then we have to quarantine for 2 days, and if there's any issues they would call us within those 2 days.
Okay,
so anything.
So you would get your results within 2 days?
Yeah, for us.
And that's kind of privately done?
What do you mean privately?
Like it's not a government thing, it's your company then.
It's a government thing. No, you have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or do you mean the taxi arrangement?
No, I meant the testing. Is the testing something that the government has asked like to be imposed at airports for staff, or is it something?
Yeah, it's mandatory. So once you land, everyone goes to the same place to get the test done. So the whole thing that I said about normal passengers having to wait for 12 hours, I'm not sure if it's so they wait for the test to get the clear, like, okay, but you still have to be quarantined despite it being negative, if that makes sense.
So in the UK, tell me about the government trying to introduce mass testing.
Trying to introduce mass testing. Well, on the mass testing thing, we don't have a solution for that yet, but there was talk on the news of like what was it, the technique though? It wasn't the up the nose and the back of the throat.
It was also a saliva test.
But it was like a slightly easier, less intrusive test than that, and it was supposed to be like a 20-minute turnaround. But there just isn't the capacity on those tests to be able to do that. But what they want to do is get enough of that and make that like a mass testing for the whole population, be able to do that.
So what's the current system?
Well, it's an absolute shambles. But I mean, we're fortunate that we haven't, had any symptoms and haven't had to go through any attempt at testing. But
I just think because mass testing, unless everyone does it on the same day at the same location, it's kind of, it's not that it's useless, but because if, for example, if you get tested and then you're in contact with someone, you don't know when you're intersecting with people that actually have COVID. So whilst I think it's a good idea, it's not, I don't think it's absolutely, for the efforts that's going to be put into doing something like this, it's not the best way to go about it, maybe. But I think if you do feel, if you do pose those symptoms of like COVID, they do take it very seriously. So you can get tested and things like that. So it is available. So
in Hong Kong, it's available. If you need testing, it's there. So what's the case in the UK?
So with us, we're told it's available if you need it, and it's there if you have symptoms. But there's been plenty of evidence across the media of people who have symptoms and have gone on the government website to request. So I guess they put their postcode in. It would then tell them you need to drive or whatever, go to the test site here, and it'll tell them somewhere, ideally fairly close. So there've been stories of people being given like addresses like hundreds of miles away like that's the nearest test centre that actually has test capacity. And then so we've shown like the TV news has gone to certain test sites where they say, oh, this one is completely closed, there's no test available here. And then they'll talk to the people and say, oh yeah, we tried to get the test here, but we were told to go to Scotland, and they live in the south of England. And so there's been lots and lots of like evidence of this happening. So the government really have had to admit, yeah, there is a problem. I think at the start, they say that it was a glitch, you know, like that old, oh, it was a glitch on the website. That's why people were being given that information. But they have had to later say, yeah, we have a problem here with capacity. So
I think they said that there's been a surprising high demand.
A surprise. And you think, why are they surprised? The second spike is coming up.
And some people have said, well, you know, you've had all summer to make sure this is all in place. And then we're not even in winter yet. So, and also universities are going to be starting the end of this month. So obviously we have a lot of overseas students at universities. So I imagine lots of people, there'll be more flights coming back into the UK, universities starting up. So that's going to cause another, you know,
potential
wave.
So I think the current issue is because we had schools restarting, right? We had schools restarting, pubs are open. They're encouraging people to go back into the office. So they've had all this, and you know, it's created, you know, obviously a spike. So I think it'll just continue to do so. And it's whether our government can cope with the unprecedented high level of demands.
No comment.
Yeah. Do you feel like everything your government has, you know, imposed, and all the improvements and things that they've tried to handle the pandemic, do you think they've managed to deliver?
Yeah, I mean,
Or do you get like in the UK we have loads of people complaining that nothing works? What's it like? What's the mood in Hong Kong? Do people think, oh yeah, okay, testing great, you know, the tracking system's great, you know, the airport system's great, you know, or is it like, oh, you know, you said you would do X, but you're not doing it?
I feel like it's something that we feel like it's naturally something you should be doing, even without the government, because how competent our government is, it depends on, you know, individuals' kind of opinion. But I feel like Hong Kong people are very good at self-initiating things. So when government is proposing something, I feel like to them it just makes sense to do it. But I don't think the government has made any kind of really drastic measures that feels like it's a completely innovative sort of thinking, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a common sense sort of thing to do, and it's just reinforced by what the government's saying, but everyone's already doing it.
Yeah. So in the UK, I feel like sometimes when we compare the UK approach to other countries, Hong Kong has always been one that they've said, and Taiwan and South Korea and New Zealand, you know, these are countries that they've kind of said, like, these are the standards we are trying to meet. So
now that you say that, we did have the issue of face masks for the first 2 months, maybe, where there were shortages, and you know, there were like the masks were being held up by the government for other, like, basically there were shortages for the public to get them, and there was an issue where private companies had to order parts, like machine parts, and I feel like they just take it into their own hands to produce face masks for the public. So yeah, those sort of measures, and like the whole closing the border thing is kind of like, well, you're half opening the doors on the other side for people to come in, and you're saying you're shutting this down. So in terms of that, no, I don't think the government did a good job to prevent it. Yeah, I
so
think.
even though, you know, from the West, we've seen like places like Hong Kong, we think you guys are doing a great job, right? But within within Hong Kong, the local people are still, they think the government could do better, right? They're the uncertainty, or the control and
quicker, yeah.
And I guess for us, I feel that, you know, no one's happy in the UK. I can't say that anyone is happy with our current government.
Oh yeah,
things.
Not now, no. I mean, I think to be fair to them, with this being a kind of unprecedented situation, I'll try and be fair to them and say that from the moment they did lock down until what has become known as the Dominic Cummings saga, of when Boris Johnson's key advisor drove up to Durham while he was supposed to be in lockdown himself, and all of that happened. So between the original lockdown and that, I think, to be fair, the government did a pretty good job considering. But around all of that, like their preparation beforehand, not enough PPE, not enough of a plan, lockdown too late, and after the Dominic Cummings saga, just like the loss of trust in government. So everything around that has been disastrous. But
so there was one point where at the beginning, like you say, you didn't have enough masks, so we didn't have enough PPE, right, for our hospitals, for our care homes. So that was a big issue for us.
Yeah. And it's proven to be, I mean, the care homes, talking about the care homes, the deaths that went on in care homes of like, so people in hospital that were COVID positive being sent back to care homes to make way in hospitals for new patients to come in. So that's proven to be disastrous. I mean, obviously.
This was something that was a bit controversial, right? So normally a patient goes into the hospital, they're treated, and as soon as possible when they can, they have to be discharged. Obviously, you can't have people taking up too many hospital beds. But then those patients may have COVID and they're sent back to the care home. So, you know, you're sent back.
I think, that's one of the thing that is kind of, I think, even for us, I mean, you know, we don't think the government reacts quick enough, but they have, you know, used, I guess, like we built like impromptu kind of like hospital places and things like that. I don't feel like the hotel hospital bed shortages is a good enough reason to send someone who is positive for COVID back to where they need.
Absolutely not.
I didn't know that was happening, actually. It's kind of mind-blowing how that's the thing.
Yeah, because
I didn't realize that.
The care home, I mean, it's old people, which is the most vulnerable group. The old people.
Yeah.
So it's like the worst possible combination there was happening for some time.
Yeah, I mean, like for us, at the near the airport, we have an expo center, so that's been made into like a makeshift facility for accommodating any extra patients or whatever. So I don't feel like that's, especially in the UK, there's so many spaces. I don't understand why they feel like they don't have enough space or resources to accommodate.
It's definitely been more controversial, and we basically have, you know, the public wants an inquiry into the way the government has dealt with the pandemic on various fronts. So the fact that we're not happy with the way the government has dealt with this, afterwards there will be an inquiry. That's how big of an issue it is over here.